Truthspresso, episode 349.
In a world gone bonkers,
it is not, generally speaking, unruly, but fires have been started, and
where the culture is a dumpster fire,
we're coming for your children,
and churches have lost their way.
I am really uncomfortable with the story of the crucifixion.
It's time to wake up with Truthspresso.
Truthspresso.
Your weekly shot of truth. And now your host, Daniel Minnick.
Hello, friends, family, foes, and of course, lurkers alike. This is your host, Daniel Minnick, for yet another episode of Truthspresso. And this episode is the kind of episode that I do once a year. My sweet, beautiful wife, Chelsea, and I have an exhibit at the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference hosted by the Christian Home Educators of Colorado. And so while we are hosting our exhibit, I will take times throughout the conference to wander around, check out the exhibits, and I'll bring my portable podcast recording gear and let some exhibit hosts pitch their exhibits for Truthspresso. And my reason for doing that, of course, is to have some content for an episode of Truthspresso, but also as a venue for these exhibits to go beyond the conference so that they can advertise their goods and services to the Truthspresso listening audience and ultimately for the Christian podcast community. And so in this episode, you will hear an array of services, products, and even activist causes here. Unfortunately, as I was using my nifty little Zoom PodTrack P4 recorder to record at exhibits, somehow I would find myself with the gain up unnecessarily high as I was interviewing some. Sometimes it would be high for me, sometimes it would be high for the person I'm interviewing, sometimes it'd be high for both of us. So unfortunately, you will hear some voices sound loud and clipped, and I've tried my best to edit and soften the blow of that a little bit, and somehow I guess carrying it around, I must have bumped the gain knob up on these sometimes. So unfortunately, some may sound a little bit rough to listen to, but I will provide links in the show notes for each of these exhibits, their websites, how to contact them. And so I hope that you enjoy this little montage of exhibits at the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference in 2025. This is Daniel Minnick for the Truthspresso podcast, and I at the Czech conference, and I am here with Abby, the homeopath. Abby, thank you for being with me on Truthspresso.
Thank you for letting me be here.
And so, what is a homeopath, Abby?
A homeopath is somebody who uses homeopathic medicine to help people not only treat their symptoms, but actually uproot whatever the illness is so that their bodies can heal themselves.
So how is homeopathic medicine, like, how does that differ from, what your typical doctor might give you, and what kind of different stuff would you give to treat someone as an alternative?
Well, the medicine that you would get from a doctor, from the homeopathic view, is going to sort of mute the symptoms. It's not fixing the problem, it's just muting the symptoms. Whereas homeopathic medicine uses the symptoms as clues to know which medicine will actually uproot the root cause of the issue.
So in other words, homeopathic medicine helps your body deal with something and get rid of something rather than kind of like unplugging indicators in a car, something like that, right?
That's exactly it, yes.
So where would someone go to learn more about your company, your ministry for homeopathic medicine? Like, where would they learn more about Abby the homeopath? How would they get in contact with you?
Well, my website is abbythehomeopath.com, and my email is abbythehomeopath@gmail.com.
Thank you, Abby, and I will include links to those on the show notes for this episode of Truthspresso. Thank you for talking with me, Abby.
Thank you so much.
And I am here with Scott Shamlin of Colorado Right to Life. Scott, thank you for talking with me.
Thanks for having me.
So can you explain to me just what is Colorado Right to Life and why is Colorado Right to Life needed in the state of Colorado?
So we are the oldest pro-life organization in the country, and we're also the most active up at the state capitol, lobbying against evil bills. And just because Amendment 79 passed last year, that's the right to abortion, which enshrines it in the state constitution, that doesn't mean the fight's over. They're still passing a lot of bills that are bad, and we still have a lot of room to repeal bad laws. And so we're up at the Capitol doing our best to prevent that.
So in 2025, what's the biggest battle that Colorado Right to Life is waging for this year? Any particular legislation or?
Yeah, so the legislative session's it's 120 days, and it starts in January. So it ended, I think it was last month now. So it's been a couple weeks since we've been up there. But we did end up winning one of our battles. It was a bill titled Youth Services Organizations. Basically what it did was it would require public school districts and charter schools to adopt a policy to allow these youth services organizations to contact the students. Now, these youth services organization, on the surface, it seems somewhat innocent. Like one of the Republicans was arguing, like, oh, Awana or Boy Scouts or Youth for Christ or something like that could then go contact the students. But we explained that, hey, this is actually really bad because the way Planned Parenthood and similar organizations operate is through these youth services organizations. So it would be giving them essentially a direct line towards, or to go speak with the kids in schools. Another fight that we did that was not legislative was Boulder Valley Health Center, Boulder Valley Health Center. That's the oldest abortion business in the state. They were holding a sex ed summer camp for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And so we did a little undercover work, and we went into their caregivers call, air quotes with the caregivers. It's actually parents, because they don't believe that parents exist. They're called caregivers.
Yes.
And they were talking about what this week-long sex ed summer camp was going to entail for the kids. And it was absolutely horrible. And it included some education, just what they wanted to basically sell the kids on abortions and eventually have it be a pipeline to have future clients. And it was not just abortions that they were trying to sell the kids, but also quote-unquote gender-affirming care.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Figured that would coming up. So Scott, what does right to life mean? Like, what is the message there, and what is the opposition like with that?
Well, so we believe that everyone has the God-given right to life. If we don't believe that anybody should be able to be murdered based on their development, whether in the womb or outside the womb. So we fight for all innocent lives from fertilization through natural death. Opposition is just angry people that think that abortion is healthcare, or they lie to themselves and say that. It's obviously not. It's ending a life. In healthcare, you need to take care of both lives. You have two patients.
Yes.
And that is something that's overlooked.
Thank you, Scott, for talking with me. And where can someone go to learn more about Colorado Right to Life?
You can go to coloradortl.org, or you can email me, office@coloradortl.org. Something we're doing this year is we're trying to get into churches and political groups and anybody that'll have us to do legislative recaps and say, hey, here's what happened, here's where we succeeded, and here's what we need to do better next year.
Well, sounds good, and I will provide links to those in the show notes for this episode. So once again, thank you, Scott, for talking with me here at Truthspresso.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I am here with Stephen from Conquering Cars. Thank you for being with me, Stephen.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So conquering cars, that mean like you're like wrestling them to the ground, or what? Just what is conquering cars about?
Not exactly. Conquering cars came from a place of working with young people. We have a 12 and 16-year-old daughters, and our oldest was getting closer and closer to driving. I've got a background in automotive. Getting her interested in being out in the shop with me and just learning a little bit about cars before she gets behind the wheel, and also going through driver's education, things like that with her. Looking for a way to connect with more kids from our community. So with our youth group, for example, church, and even our school community, our expanded school community and everything with our homeschool groups and whatnot, had a lot of students approach us and say, hey, Mr. Steven, you know a lot about cars. Can we come over and can you teach us? So, well, we could only do that on a limited size, a scale. And so the idea from Conquering Cars really came from how can we reach more young people and just teach them the basics of automotive maintenance, the value and responsible car ownership, and things like that, and really try to instill some confidence so that they're not intimidated by getting under the hood of the car and just learning the basics about the cars they're driving, or even if they don't own their own car, get under the hood of their parents' car. Maybe teach their parents a thing or two about cars, and so that's where Conquering Cars comes from. Sort of just confidence. It's really about confidence.
So it's kind of like the family that drives together, stays together. No, it's like about so you said it's about like helping families all learn about cars together. So you include like driving instruction, or is it
not so much driving instruction? We actually may incorporate that in the future. There's some other implications that come along with teaching people how to drive, but more specifically, like how to pick out your first car, how to negotiate the price, when you're buying a car, how to ask important, intelligible questions to your mechanic, or perhaps a mechanic you've never worked with before, sort of developing that relationship. That's really important. But yes, it is a family membership, so it's not just for one student. Whether you have one kid or 8 kids, it's a family membership. So, when you sign up for Conquering Cars, the curriculum, we actually have a free course that anyone can take. And first 6 lessons of that first course are absolutely free. So you can always go to conqueringcars.com and check that out. But we do have a paid curriculum as well if you want to go a step further and just kind of get deeper into the course content and the course material. But again, it's a family membership. So if mom and dad want to take it too, you get a full year access to the content, the curriculum, and then we're going to be updating the curriculum about halfway through, this year, I should say, here in the next 6 months. So if you signed up for it now, in about 6 months, we're going to have a whole other version of Conquering Cars, and you'll have, anybody that signs up will have additional access to that. So just ever evolving in terms of just making improvements for the curriculum.
So what are a few of the things that someone might learn from like the mechanics of a car that you might teach there with Conquering Cars?
Sure. You're going to learn just everything from, and that's part of the task assignments that are at the end of each lesson. So we'll challenge a student to not just take in the information for the 5 or 10 minutes that the lesson is, but afterwards we actually tell you, go, for example, go locate the dipstick on your car or your family's car. Pull the dipstick out, and we teach you, wipe it off. Don't ever look at the first reading. That's not going to be accurate, especially if the car's recently been running. So it's little things like that. So you go check the oil, you reinsert the dipstick, you pull it out, you get a good reading, and this is while the car's off. This is little basic things people don't think about. It's like, I can check the oil while my car's running. No, you probably shouldn't. But anyway, you check the oil. Well, then the other part of the task assignments at the end of the lesson is challenges the student to go teach it, almost immediately. Go teach it to somebody else, whether that's a parent or a friend. But that's where we see a lot of value is encouraging students of the course to go show someone else what they just learned, and that helps commit things to memory. So whether it's checking your oil or just understanding how a brake system works, from the master cylinder to the brake caliper to the rotors to the pads and everything in between. It's just understanding that, and then it's kind of like going home and doing your homework. You learn a lesson at school, you go home and you do the homework, you practice what you learned. That's what our task assignments are there for. And so it's just to further challenge the students. So it's nothing profound. We just tried to get as much of the basic information about auto mechanics in one place. There's certainly other courses. We're very interested in putting an advanced course together for students that already have some experience in automotive. Maybe they've been helping dad change the oil for years on their car or doing brake jobs. Maybe they're just a little more advanced, and so we're interested in making an advanced course for those students. So this is a very basic course. If you don't know anything about cars, everyone should take the free content. And if they're enjoying that and want the additional challenge, they can take the other 6 online courses as well, which is part of the paid content.
I'd be surprised how many even veteran drivers and adults probably don't know a lot of the basic things about handling cars or, taking care of cars. Have there been any kids that you know of that who've taken this course and have went on to become auto mechanics?
Not yet. The course is still extremely young in its inception. We just put this together and rolling it out here at this homeschool conference here, and so extremely new. We've got a lot of families signed up just this weekend, so very excited about that. Getting feedback from all the new students and families that have joined our community. But I've got interesting back home where we're from in East Texas. We've got several families and students that are taking the course, but they're also working part-time at an automotive shop. So they're taking our course and also got employment, part-time employment in most cases. Guys working 20, sometimes 30 hours a week at a local automotive shop, and they're also taking our course. And it's been great to get feedback from them in a very short amount of time. As soon as you start applying, just take one of our lessons, for example, about how to talk to an individual about negotiating the purchase of a vehicle. You go talk to that individual, and we encourage you, if you're not very familiar with the mechanics of the car, take it to a mechanic. Maybe pay them a little something to look it over, and they can advise you. And then going back to that individual and saying, mechanic pointed out that this, and this is wrong. Would you be willing to take less for the car? And it's sort of how that negotiation process works. And we've gotten some great feedback recently where the first time a student applied just one of the lesson contents of one of the lessons in Conquering Cars, it essentially paid for the curriculum. So there's a ton of value in it. It's just the difference between applying what you learned. If you're an outgoing person, sort of an extroverted personality, this can actually, the value is almost immediately available for what you're going to learn in the course content. But again, it's nothing super profound. It's just kind of get your feet wet and instilling confidence in both young people and adults alike that just don't have a background in auto mechanics. So this is just a great introduction to that.
Well, thank you, Stephen, there from Conquering Cars. Yeah, check out Conquering Cars, anywhere from not getting ripped off by a dealer, buying your first car, to taking care of them and learning a little bit about how they work. So if someone wanted to learn more about Conquering Cars, where could they go? How would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, it's just conqueringcars.com. And you can always drop us an email as well if you want to get some additional information. We've recently started packaging it together for micro schools or homeschool co-ops that want to teach it to a larger audience, a larger class. We have, it's actually a really great value if you get, 10 to 15 students together and one person, one individual, one teacher wants to teach the course. We have packages like that together as well. So pretty much anything you can think of, how this would serve you best, let us know, drop us a line, conqueringcars.com, send us an email, and you can always get in touch with us. We've got a phone number online as well. You can get in touch with us that way.
There you go, conqueringcars.com. I will provide a link to that in the show notes for this episode. And thank you, Stephen, for talking with me about Conquering Cars.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I am here with Christian Focus, and what's your name?
David Williams.
David Williams from Christian Focus, and this is a Christian children's publisher. So could you tell me a little bit about Christian Focus Publishing? What do you publish, and what's your goals there?
So we are Christian Focus Publications. We publish Reformed evangelical books for all ages. We have children's books, we have Christian living books, we have theological academic books called Mentor, and we have heritage books, which would be reprints of perhaps Puritan or Reformer or historical preachers in the past. So yeah.
So, it's not just books about here's a cute little cartoon story of the flood. You'll want to make sure kids learn about some of the deep things of the faith, and in a way, kids understand.
Yeah, we were actually set up as an organization to write good quality children's books that have a depth of theology to them. And that's in our DNA now. So all our books here at the Homeschool Convention are designed with the children's spiritual welfare in mind to help them learn more about Christ.
I see got things on technology, social media. We got shorter catechism devotion, so we even teach God's Bible timeline. So learn about creation and the history of the timeline of the Bible, and Westminster shorter catechism. So the kids got a lot of cool stuff to learn. And so where could someone find some information about Christian Focus Publishing? Like how would they get a hold of you? Where would they find us?
So as I say, we are based in Inverness, Scotland, but...
I never would have guessed.
The accent gives it away, yes. We can be accessed on the internet, christianfocus.com. All our books are there. We have a distributor in the US as well, so we can get books out to people very easily that way. You can also go through your church bookstall, you can go through your local Christian bookshop as well. We like to support those.
Cool. So check out Christian Focus Publishing. I will provide a link to the website in the show notes for this episode. And so thank you for talking with me.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
The Christian podcast community is a cohesive group of like-minded Christian podcasters proclaiming the truths of Christ with expertise and passion in the areas of theology, church history, Christian living, evangelism, apologetics, parenting, homeschooling, sermons, and much, much more. So check us out at christianpodcastcommunity.org. christianpodcastcommunity.org. One stop for all your favorite Christian podcasts.
And I am here with Doug from Real Science Radio. So, Doug, thank you for talking with me.
Well, thank you, Daniel, and thank you for answering our 3 questions from Real Science Radio. If you folks want to hear and see Daniel's answer to Real Science Radio's 3 theologico-biblico-scientifico questions, tune into Real Science Radio, go to YouTube, subscribe to the Real Science Radio channel, and you can see our interview with Daniel, which is short and sweet and to the point and very good.
Yeah, so definitely I'll have to provide a link to that in the show notes for this episode. And
yes.
So, Doug, could you explain to me just what is Real Science Radio? What is real science? Is that opposed to fake science?
Well, let's start with real science. On Real Science Radio, we try to teach people how to sort real science from fake science. And the number one parameter for discovering real science is checking it against the Bible. If it agrees with the Bible, it may be real science. If it disagrees with the Bible, chances are it's fake science. And so we help people sort through things with one giant chop that eliminates a whole lot of the junk. Save people a lot of time.
I take it real science would probably involve the idea that God created the world. And so with Real Science Radio, like, would you believe that the Earth is like kind of young-ish compared to some of the other theories out there?
Oh, yes. Well, we're definitely young Earth creationists. We're Bible believers. We believe the Bible is the literal inspired word of God and that we can trust it.
Amen.
Not only for history and for philosophy and for spiritual guidance, but also for where it does speak to science, we can trust it for its advice on science, too. Yeah, absolutely. So we believe the world is probably, well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, if I should say, because people have various slightly different. Bob Enyart, our founder, used to say the world is under 10,000 years old. I feel it's a little under 6,000 years old. I think Fred falls somewhere in between there, 6,000 to 7,000. And so There,
Oh, that-
Fred says 6,642.5.
Is that Usher's date there?
Yes. So we're all right around Usher's date, and we would all defer to Usher probably if we had to take a stand, right?
Does that include that Adam and Eve were created at like 2 in the afternoon or something?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, it was, Adam was created in the afternoon because it was just before Eve, right? Yeah.
Do you have kids?
I have 4 kids.
I was going to say, that sounds like a dad joke.
Yeah.
But I did laugh.
I've had to tell a lot of dad jokes because I'm a dad now, even though, I detect corniness sometimes, but I have to be corny for the sake of being a dad.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's okay. It's helpful for the kids. That way they learn to recognize it later.
So for Real Science Radio, from people who believe in evolution or, opponents there, what is the most often question that they might ask you to try to trick you in their mind?
Wow. Boy, that's an insightful question, because we've debated a lot of atheists and a lot of skeptics. And I think, this is off the top of my head.
Okay.
The most common refrain is, well, most people believe this. That really is their... So it's mostly an appeal to authority, an appeal to the majority opinion, is that they try to paint us as flakes and fringe kooks.
Yes.
Because rarely do they open up with a testable scientific challenge. Rarely. In fact, I'm trying to think of... We're usually the ones who start bringing up the specific testable allegations and positing various theories that could be tested or that have been tested. So we're usually attacked more on a philosophical, sociological level, at least initially. But that's a really good question.
I wasn't sure if there's one that nagged at you, like, oh, we got the question, and it's like, yep, I've heard this 1,000 times. I'll just give you the most evolutionists and atheists, people who claim to be atheists, who believe in evolution, one of their top things that I've heard a million times, thanks for saying it that way, is they attack the Bible. Yes.
They say, well, the Bible is written by a bunch of ancient goat herders. It's been edited 50 times. We don't know if any of that's true. So the one attack that I've heard most initially is trying to lump us in as religious fanatics and attack the Bible, which we are able to defend the Bible. And then we'll typically start citing historical evidence that the Bible is true from within the Bible itself. Mm-hmm. We'll cite archaeological evidence that confirms the Bible. And while you rarely can convince an atheist that the Bible is reliable, we usually move them off that point, and then we will start with the claims about geology, astronomy, and things that confirm or at least support a young Earth. And then we have to drag them into that argument. Mm-hmm. So that's been my experience so far. And Fred's listening in the background, by the way. Fred Williams is the host. I'm co-host Doug McBurney. Fred's listening in the background, so he'll correct or add to anything I might get wrong. So far, so good, Doug. Okay.
Yes.
Fred says so far, so good.
What's one of the strongest arguments for young Earth creation that you often might give?
So the strongest evidence I personally believe and that I like to lead with is that the Bible is primarily an historical narrative. Mm-hmm. And the Bible implies very strongly that the earth was created relatively recently in 6 days. So that's the strongest evidence. Now, the atheist, he'll say, well, what are you talking about? And I'll tell him, well, I'm telling you, you asked me what's the strongest evidence? That's it, is that the Bible says it. Now we can move to the next evidence would be the evidence for the global flood is relatively overwhelming, in my humble opinion. And you can start with the worldwide strata. You can talk about the fossils. You can talk about the geology that we can observe. And so I like to let them know that the Bible is the real source of truth. And so when you ask me for the strongest evidence, I'm going to lead with what I know to be the strongest evidence, and that's the Bible. And then we can go to the rocks and the stars and the sun and the moon, and we can start talking about other things because there's an overwhelming amount of evidence there too. But number one is the Bible.
Oh, yes, definitely. Because there's so much evidence all over the place, and it seems to come down to worldviews, because it's like people want to put on their various colored glasses when they look at stuff, and so it does take a change of worldview sometimes for people to really open their eyes to the overwhelming evidence that we have for creation, young earth. God created the truth of the Word of God, the Bible.
Amen. Amen. So I'll tell you a little bit about just where our name comes from and our founder. So Bob Enyart was on TV and radio for about 30 years. And starting about 15 years ago, Fred, or is it closer to 20 now? It's close to 20 years. We'll just call it 20 years. Bob was an avid listener of National Public Radio, because you've always got to keep track of what the enemy's up to.
Yeah, I'm going to say that must have been rough.
And so Bob used to listen to a show called Science Friday, which still airs, from what I understand, on something called National Public Radio. There's a show called Science Friday that promotes a godless, evil, evolutionary worldview, especially toward young people. It's geared toward teenagers and younger. The interviews are always with older people, and it's definitely its demographic is adult, but the show is geared to reach into the minds of young people, primarily through their parents. Anyway, it's old Earth propaganda radio show that's been on the air for many years. And so Bob had a radio show daily, and on Fridays he would take off from the news and he would do science. And he said, we're going to do Real Science Friday. You've heard Science Friday? You've heard Ira Flatow is the host. You've heard it? You've heard Science Friday? Well, tune in Friday for Real Science Friday. So that was the genesis of the show. Ira Flatow and NPR then sued Bob over the name, claiming he was infringing on an alleged copyright that doesn't exist, a trademark that doesn't exist. And so anyway, we got as much publicity as we could out of that, and then we settled and changed the name because they had a lot more money than we did. But it was some great publicity, and that's how the name Real Science Radio came to be. And then, so Bob Enyart was a pastor and active in the pro-life and creationist community for about 40 years. Passed away in 2021, and handed the reins quite suddenly and unexpectedly to Fred, who was his co-host. Fred recruited me. I had been Bob's co-host for his daily news-oriented, biblical-oriented talk show. And that's how Real Science Radio evolved into its modern iteration, and we're on the internet, we're on the radio in Denver, AM 670 KLT, the 50,000-watt blowtorch, and we're on the internet worldwide via audio podcast and on YouTube. So that's the history, and that's what we do. And our goal is to reach Christians with better tools to argue for the biblical truth of creation. And we do that. We talk about biology, chemistry, taxonomy, every kind of science you can imagine. We're willing to address, and we love to address, and we're yet to find one verse in the Bible or one allegation in the Bible that's ever been proven wrong. And we're very confident, and we love doing it, and we just praise the Lord for the opportunity.
Yeah, well, thank you, Doug. And if you're a Christian, check out Real Science Radio. If you're not a Christian, check out Real Science Radio. And
I like that. You almost said Real Science Friday.
Real Science Friday, yes.
So, Fred, Real Science Friday was always a better name. We always knew that.
Yeah. I have listened to episodes from years ago. So
All right.
I met Bob Enyart. I was at his
memorial.
His memorial service, yes.
Wow. Yeah.
So, check out Real Science Radio at realscienceradio.com. And thank you, Doug, for talking with me and pitching Real Science Radio. And we will provide links to that in the show notes for this episode.
Hey, thank you, Daniel. God bless you.
Thank you, Doug. Well, this is Daniel Minnick from the Truthspresso podcast, and I am here with Joseph for Wool Carter's Wooden Swords.
That's right.
Thank you for talking with me here. So, Joseph, what is Wool Carter's Wooden Swords? Like, what do you make here, and what would kids be interested in some of the stuff that you make here?
Oh, sure. So when Benaniah, my son, was 3 years old, he's 13 now, I sat him down and was like, what do you want to do? And what do you want to make together? And he's like, I want to make wooden swords. And so that was 10 years ago. And so we've been to many fairs and events. And, you know, the word wool carders is about our last name, Tozer. It means one who cards wool or shears sheep.
Oh, cool.
And since we went to so many Scottish and Celtic festivals, it really was a fun thing to kind of link together with the wooden swords. But it's just my way of spending time with my children to encourage their spirits. And, you know, the Bible says that the tongue is sharper than any two-edged sword. It has the power to give life and death. And so I think a part of the reason Christian conferences allows us to come in is because we're trying to inspire children to have heart and to speak light over any situation they might find themselves in.
Yeah, that's cool that your kids are the inspiration for this family business. And like, so you make swords, wooden swords, and I see that there's quite a variety of different wooden swords and quite a variety of colors. And so what kinds of swords do these resemble here?
So, you know, we noticed that we really wanted the Spirit of God to be inside of everything we do. And so, like, I think that the rainbow is a sign of God's covenant with us.
Yes.
And, you know, I want to just bring that anointing and that covering onto our swords and just being artistic. I went ahead and just started making, you know, the Roy G. Biv and adding it to our swords. But then we have clear coat, we have silver, we have black, we have some colors that maybe are in addition to the rainbow. But eventually we started building really small swords for like kids that are even in strollers.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, even at like 1 or 2 years old, they know they're holding a mighty weapon.
Yes. Boys of any age love swords.
It's true.
So what's the smallest ones you have? And then, so we got like little pocket daggers, something that might resemble what Ehud killed King Eglon with, maybe. And then,
pretty cool stuff.
It looks like you have is that like a samurai sword on the top here?
Oh yeah. So I mean, over the years since we made swords, we've specialized with building some katanas, working with some martial art clubs, being able to work with people that are doing training and, you know, they want great swords, broadswords.
Yes.
They want it built out of hickory. They want it plated with ivory, you know, like, so we've worked with some different schools, but I think more than anything, our company's kind of evolved to be more of a hobby. And so we really want to bring our product to Christian families.
Yes.
Because really it's just about, you know, inspiring people's children, but also giving like parents time to interact with their kids. Like, you know, children so much want to fight dad.
Yes. It's like you can make swords and bond with your kids here, and then you sell the swords to families, and that helps them bond too. And,
Yeah. So, you know, I want to raise my kids a little different. So I want them to be very crafty, very hands-on. I want them to be exposed to like different trades at early ages. So like Ben and I over here is into jewel crafting, and I'm sure that'll change, and maybe later he'll do blacksmithing, right?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of working out some of the trades with, you know, Rua is into tailoring and sewing right now, so he does a lot of our sheaths. But I want to expose him to working hard and crafting and making things and being able to earn money, but then just see how his spirit grows and where that kind of leads him into his next career. Because as he's walking through being able to kind of interact with product, money, finances, communication, marketing, I think that it'll give him more exposure. And as he gets older, I hope it results in wisdom.
Oh, yes. And it's definitely like learning how to run and manage a business when you're young will definitely pay off dividends.
Oh, yeah.
As an adult, for sure. And
one quick funny story. Cool. My kids were building the swords and the sheaths, and my boys were making the sword sheaths, and they're like, oh, we're going to make so much money. We're going to do so great. And we're so much better than sister, who's making crayons. And Claire's like, well, you know, I want to have an equal share of the profit. And they're like, no, you can only have the profit from the crayons. And so they came to mom and dad, and they're like, well, what do we do? And I was like, well, you know, as your parents, we're going to do what's fair, and we don't even have to give you an answer right now. We're going to go through the process. We're going to work with integrity, and then we'll divide the spoils as we see fit. But depending on how hard you work, we're going to reward you based off of your diligence. And so we have this fun conversation. And then like a week or two goes by, and Claire's adding up her crayon inventory, and she has like $1,200 worth of melted crayons at this point. And she's like, "In your face, boys!"
Nice. Yeah, that's definitely one of those stories for when, she's grown up and she could tell her kids, but yeah.
So it was really cute.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. You got huge swords and some of them very ornately designed hilts and guards and even wooden shields. And so definitely.
Yeah, so if you want to see us next year, come to the Christian Conference. I mean, there's a lot of people here that are representing just so many wonderful biblical principles. There's inspiring military, there's books, there's authors, there's pastors, there's leaders, there's community of children that are like the Stoa community of homeschoolers where they're learning to have conversations and debate with each other. I mean, there's a large variety of things here. I really encourage any person that's looking at pouring into their family and their children's integrity that they would take time to come to Christian conferences.
Definitely, and I invite you to check out Wood Carter's Wooden Swords, and you have a way for people to get a hold of you outside the conferences.
It might be on Etsy or something.
It might be on Etsy,
but it's really more of a hobby, and we really only want to be available, really, for the most part, to our personal close community. And so we sell swords to a couple schools down in Pueblo West and Colorado Springs. Other than that, they really do need to just come here. If they want to be able to see our products and stuff, because I can only produce so many, and so we reserve that really for these special conferences.
Definitely encourage you to check out the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference, and you will see some wooden swords from Wood Carter's Wooden Swords. And you could even check out their Etsy shop, Facebook page. You can get a hold of them by email. I'll put a link to Facebook and Etsy in the show notes for this episode. And so, Joseph, thank you for talking to me.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
I am here with Dr. Jen Para of the Multisensory Reading Center. Thank you for talking to me, Jen.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
So what does multisensory mean? What is the Multisensory Reading Center about?
Yeah, so we work with struggling readers or spellers. In particular, we specialize in students with dyslexia, but we can help any student, whether you have a diagnosis or not. We provide different levels of services. So we have a reading and spelling inventory. If you have concerns, but you're just not sure where your child's skills are, we can do a complete look, let you know where they're at, and then make recommendations about best next steps. And then we also offer structured literacy, Orton Gillingham-based tutoring, and we also offer dyslexia therapy. So we work with students of all ages, and we have several different platforms. So we try to make sure that it's the best fit for your child, and everything we do is one-on-one. So there's never any group work. Everything is completely tailored and adapted for your child.
So what are some of the challenges that a child with dyslexia might have, and how do you approach teaching a dyslexia child learn to read that's different from the average child?
Right. So there's a lot of challenges that our students with dyslexia face, all the way from just social emotional issues, feeling bad about not being able to read or spell or write the way their peers can, and all the way up to their literacy skills, of course, reading and spelling. So we do try to partner with our families to help educate the parents on the best way to help their student, not only with those social and emotional issues, but also directly teaching them using structured literacy and Orton Gillingham approaches to help build the connections in their brain that are needed so that they can become proficient and fluent at their reading.
If you have a child who has dyslexia, know someone, or just otherwise might be interested in a multisensory reading center, how would someone get a hold of you? Where would they find you?
Yeah, so we have a website. It's dyslexiasite.com. So you can go there. We have a lot of free resources and just information in our blog and our webpage. You can also reach out at info@dyslexiasite.com, or you can call me directly at 469-223-8244, and we can set up a free consultation. We talk with parents all the time. We love to talk, so feel free to reach out, and we can just listen to your concerns and kind of help you field the next best steps.
Great, definitely check that out. I will provide links in the show notes for this episode for Multisensory Reading Center. And thank you, Dr. Jen Parra, for talking with me today.
Thank you.
I speak to parents all the time who come up to me and they see what's happening, but they don't know what to do. And I just want to stand up and say, you can do this. Here is a solution.
This is Yvette Hampton, host of the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. Join us each week for a new episode as we offer encouragement and resources on biblical discipleship from popular speakers and authors, as well as parents just like you and me. Find out more at schoolhouserocked.com or listen anywhere you find your favorite podcast.
I am here with Kevin from a Family Business Academy. Thank you for talking with me at Truthspresso here, Kevin.
Absolutely, Daniel. Thanks for the opportunity.
So, Kevin, could you explain just what is a Family Business Academy? What does it do? It obviously has to do with business and education. So what is a Family Business Academy?
We officially help families start and run businesses together as a family. We enjoy the opportunity to bridge the gap of rebuilding the family culture and the family economy inside of the home and restoring the family that was originally intended from God's purpose.
Do you teach like homeschool students about like what running a business is like, how to start a business, things that are involved in that?
Right, yeah. So we ideally are working with parents and children together collectively. We have a multitude of different individuals that are going from A to B in their business journey. So currently at the Homeschool Conference, we're offering a challenge of actually starting a business from scratch to a fully implementable business in 3 weeks. Because a lot of people think that it's difficult to start a business, but really it's not that complicated as long as you have somebody in your back pocket that's helping you along the way.
What's the biggest fear that a lot of people might have for starting a business? They're like a family business or even like kids, like where they think, okay, that's something for geniuses who are all grown-ups and stuff. Like,
right. So what we found is actually the parents are the ones that have the limiting beliefs as opposed to the children because, there's that sense of wonder that kids have. And failure is obviously a big hindrance where a lot of people are like, I don't even know if I want to try. It's too much work. And it all becomes a mindset issue. So we help overcome that through some know-how, but not knowing what the next step is usually where a lot of people get held up. And not knowing, how do I name a business? How do I package this the right way? What are the words I need to use? How do I get customers? How do I get returning customers? How to deal with problems that come up and, what's the next step? So that's usually the issues that we find, and that's what we're here to do is help coach people through that process.
Cool. Do you have like tips on things like budgeting, expenses, that kind of thing, so that you don't go bankrupt in year one necessarily? But
yeah, there's a finance section of it, and there's additional information that we provide for that. But budgeting is key. My wife has an accounting background, so that was super beneficial in helping us when we originally started our business, and she's being able to bring that to the table as a part of the coaching as well.
So that's a Family Business Academy. So if someone would like to learn more about a Family Business Academy, where would they go? How would they get a hold of you?
Great. So just go to familybusinessacademy.com.
So familybusinessacademy.com. I'll provide a link to that site in the show notes for this episode of Truthspresso. So Kevin, thank you for talking with me.
Absolutely, Daniel. Thank you for the time.
This is Daniel Minnick for the Truthspresso podcast, and I am here at the STOA Christian Homeschool Speech and Debate League and talking to Abigail. Thank you for talking, Abigail.
Of course.
So what is the STOA Christian Homeschool Speech and Debate League? I mean, by the name it sounds intuitive enough, but what do you do? Is this for like homeschooling students?
So STOA USA is for anyone ages 12 to 18 who is homeschooling in the United States. We have clubs all over, specifically talking about Christian education and how to educate better. And so we have kids who go to tournaments, and we practice different types of speech and debates to grow in God and to be able to spread the light of God.
Cool. So do you help young people who might have some jitters about speaking to learn how to speak more confidently?
Yes, there have definitely been many tears in speech and debate, but at the end of everyone's first year, they are so glad that they actually did it, and they have all improved from it. I've never seen one person actually was sad that they were part of speech and debate. Everyone just loves it.
That's cool. And when it comes to like debate, like what kind of topics do you debate?
Sure, so there's 3 different types of debate. The first one is team policy debate, which is 2 people versus 2 people, and it's a policy debate. So it just depends on the resolution that STOA decides for the year. And this last year, we actually debated on the United States healthcare system and talking about Medicare and Medicaid and how to actually change this. The second type of debate is Lincoln Douglas, and they discuss values, and you should value one thing over another. And the third is parliamentary, which is based on England's Britain's parliament, and just it can be anywhere between a scenario resolution to a policy resolution like team policy.
Do you think a lot of students might have fun debating the opposite position that they might hold?
Yes. So the cool thing about STOA is you never have to go against your beliefs. So you debate different types of their resolution. For example, this last year when we did healthcare, if someone would have brought up abortion, we would have said that abortion is not healthcare, and so we have never been pro-abortion in our speaks.
You don't have to feel like the devil's advocate, I guess, if you don't want to. But so, yeah, that's cool. If you're a parent or a young person who's interested in learning more about speaking and debating, definitely check out STOA Christian Homeschool Speech and Debate League. So, Abigail, where would someone find out how to contact you guys? You have a website?
So our website is stoausa.org, and that just shows you all the states that are participating in STOA and the clubs that you can participate in also.
Definitely check out STOA, and I will provide links to STOA USA in the show notes for this episode. So thank you, Abigail, for pitching STOA for me.
Thank you so much.
And I am here with Corey for Four Fringes. Corey, thank you for talking with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So Four Fringes, could you please explain what does Four Fringes mean? What is this ministry about?
Yeah, so Four Fringes really is about connecting. It's unity of the faith through service. And the idea is that we want to bring together churches, ministries, ministry leaders, and partners, not only to bring forth the light of the church again, but really restoring the church to some of the earliest values we've had here in America. And we've got a couple of different initiatives that we've been working on to try and accomplish that.
So what are the Four Fringes that Four Fringes deals with?
Yeah, so Four Fringes is about the Bible, where there's a commandment to put fringes on the 4 corners of your garments. And we see with the woman who had the issue of blood for 12 years, she grabbed the hems of Jesus' garments and was healed. And those are those same fringes. But in Mark chapter 6, it talks about these people came from different places, and they saw Jesus and they would grab his garment, the hem of his garment, and for healing. So we think of this as a healing of the nations in a sense. And so Make the Church Great Again, one of the, foundational initiatives that we have, is about restoring the church to its role in society that we used to have. I mean, in America, the church has always been a pillar in the community. We've lost that over the last couple of decades, where the church has not really had a voice the way that it used to. So we want to restore that. And by making the church great again, we're educating the church, the people of God, on ways that we can get involved and do that, have ministries again and do those areas. And so with our first kind of initiative from Make the Church Great Again is what we call Make Education Biblical Again. So we're starting an education ministry network, and that's to help ministries all over that are focused on education. So homeschool co-ops and homeschool groups and homeschool academies, different programs that are around that. We want to make sure those programs have their religious protections as well. And so that education ministry network is to give forth those same protections to those in education, because we need education to be biblical. If we're going to restore a lot of that back, the Bible has to be that foundation, and that's what we'll be doing with Make Education Biblical Again.
So make the church great again, make education biblical again, and then I see a sign that says make health biblical again. So what's that about?
So the health, we're really excited about this one, about the health ministry network that we're starting. So we're looking to launch in 2027 with our health ministry network, and we're going to do similar to what we're doing with education again, making it biblical again. A lot of people don't know, but hospitals started out as from the church in America.
Yes.
And so when you look back on that time and you think you've got nuns and you've got clergy, serving the community with health care, and it was affordable. Most of it was no cost. And the way that they were able to do that is they came together as the body, as the group of believers to do that. We're wanting to restore that. Now, we're not back in the 1800s or times where these were going on where you could do free services. We have cost of living is so high now. But the idea is we come together as the body of Christ to actually serve one another through healthcare, but not just sharing those costs amongst each other. That's really not the purpose. There's many other ministries that do that, and they do a fine job. What we're wanting to do is have it where believers are getting their routine care on a consistent basis, whether that's through family practice with those annual checkups, dentistry, pediatrics, midwifery. We also look at biblical counseling and how important that is for marriages, for parenting, for mental health in those areas that are going on in our society. We have plenty of Christian doctors and healthcare providers that they entered the industry to serve, to give back. We want to be able to do that in a way that's unique. So our health ministry network, we're finding doctors and nurse practitioners and midwives and those areas to join alongside us so that we can help them understand what it means to have a health ministry network so that we can launch that out in 2027.
So making health biblical again, as it said, like it used to be something the church provided, and now it's like it's become so bureaucratized and definitely made the cost go up, and we kind of lost sight of just, health is ministry, not some kind of huge corporatocracy and government-controlled like Leviathan there. Yeah. And I noticed this, make the church great again, make education biblical again, make health biblical again. Kind of rings a bell there. It sounds familiar there, but yeah.
It does. It's the slogan. It's pretty catchy at this point, and it's really
Yes.
interesting. We had someone come to our booth, and they said, because we said, people aren't going to the doctors. They know they have something, but they're not going. And they're like, because if I got the sniffles, I come out with a $3,600 bill. And it's just, people are afraid of that cost that it's going to be.
Yeah.
We want to eliminate that. And when you think of the biblical nature of that, if that was something the Messiah did, charging people for healing and, hey, I'm going to pray for you, but it's going to cost this much, we can't do that. We've got to restore things back to someone is sick, someone needs help. We are here as believers to provide that help and that service. And there's many people, providers. We've had people come to our booth and they say, I've been in the medical field and I actually left. Or my husband, he was in the medical field and he left because as a Christian, he just couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't serve within that system, but we want them to be able to serve in a system that is actually biblical. And these statements do ring a bell. And, we have hats, with those same slogans, make the church great again, make education biblical again, and make health biblical again. It's one of the greatest witnessing tools I've had where I wear the hat. It doesn't matter where I go. Go to the grocery store, the person in checkout, we have a conversation about what church they go to. With the health biblical again, they're like, yeah, we need to really work on that. What is your idea? How do we do that? And you open up these conversations that wouldn't have happened before without having something like that. So these hats have been wonderful in providing that ministry opportunity for me to talk to many people. So we want others to experience that as well. When they get a hat, they can go to either one of those websites, makethechurchgreatagain.org, makehealthbiblicalagain.org, makeeducationbiblicalagain.org, and we have the opportunity for people to get involved, get a hat, and start sharing more about what we're building.
Definitely sounds like 3 campaigns that definitely need to happen and need lots of improvement, starting with the church, back to, education, which was a function of the church, and health function of the church. And definitely check out 4 Fringes and the 3 ministries. And so you mentioned the websites for each of those. And so, Corey, thank you for talking with me.
Yes, and thank you, and I appreciate it. And that is FOUR, 4 Fringes. A lot of people ask us, is it FOR or FOUR? Yes. So these are great opportunities for us to connect as believers all over America. So we really look forward to this.
Cool, and I'll provide links to each of those in the show notes for this episode of Truthspresso. Corey, thank you for talking about 4 Fringes.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed listening to my interviews at these various exhibits at the conference, and I sincerely invite you to check them out. Follow the links in the show notes for this episode. There's pretty much something for everyone. And believe me, there were far more exhibits than these. I only interviewed here a small fraction of the exhibits that are available, and so if you would like to see more exhibits, I would invite you to check out the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference in Colorado next year. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Truthspresso, and as always, stay tuned for the next episode of Truthspresso, and God bless.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Truthspresso. Be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast app. Truthspresso is a member of the Christian podcast community. Check out other great faith-building shows at ChristianPodcastCommunity.org.